All right, welcome everyone. This is the Environmental Task Force meeting for March 1st, 2023. And just to summarize a little bit, the discussion, we're starting a little late, was all about, our storm that we had and all the outages and the idea of warming centers, and it's really pertinent to this plan and preparing properly for the future. So the agenda, does anyone have anything to add or amend the agenda? If not, if I could have someone move the agenda. Okay, Charlie, and supported by Bob. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Communications correspondence. Anything coming in from folks? I just wanted to say the C's team is on spring break and they're all traveling, so they're not with us this evening. Let's see. I did have an interesting meeting today with the My Green Power folks and at DTE, and an individual that it develops they have some community solar pilots that they're doing. And this is something that, we wanted to investigate from Scio's perspective. And it's interesting. They have several 1 megawatt pilots going into Detroit to support low-income communities. I learned a little bit about the program that they're doing with the city of Ann Arbor, which is the landfill solar. It's both Pittsfield and Ann Arbor. And the way that, just so folks know, what they've done with Ann Arbor, and they're willing to work with other communities as well, is you need to have an anchor tenant, and that anchor tenant guarantees commitments to buy the renewable energy, and they market it through My Green Power because the utility owns it. However, there have been some issues that have come up with it's a 20 megawatt the plan is for a 20 megawatt. Part of it's on the landfill and part of it's on like some green space. They found out that they need to actually construct a whole substation because they don't have anything close to it. The soils are an issue. The slope is an issue with the landfill. So it's gotten incredibly expensive. So here you have a renewable energy product that is going to be more expensive than what you're paying currently, and you can subscribe to My Green Power now for a little bit less than the regular power. So, that's certainly an issue. So some of the parameters around that are obviously size. It needs to be next to a substation. It needs to be close to distribution lines. And so I got some criteria that we can kind of put in, and they said, yeah, if you give us some sites that might be worth considering in Scio, we can give you feedback on those. So yeah, Bob.
Doesn't DTE own a big chunk of land right over off of Miller by a substation there? Mm-hmm. Couldn't they put it on their own property?
You can go into GIS and find out what those properties are. The other one, anyone from the county here? No. Is, we have all that land, or I shouldn't say we, the road commission has all that land behind the road commission building.
Mm.
And so, yeah, nearby? But what's that?
Is there a substation nearby?
I don't think so. So I'm trying to think, hopefully it won't be stepping on the county's toes, but, sort of identifying, some parcels of land. And we already have a couple of megawatts going in. One is proposed for Heritage Woods. They're putting in a 1 megawatt solar, and then this one hasn't come through for final PUD approval, but it's a what is it? Land Rover, Mercedes, BMW, and they want to come in with 6, fast charging stations on Jackson.
Who is doing that, Jen?
It's Lithium Motors. They're the ones that bought Suburban. They're out of Oregon. They're actually, well, preliminarily they were proposing a net zero sort of thing with all these fast charging stations, et cetera. So, that's an interesting, and they've really done a really good job. Well, Bob, you can contradict me. I don't know how you feel, but the site plan with the infiltration and the native plantings and all that, they've really gone kind of the extra mile to get there, because we were not very happy about bringing more dealerships further west on Jackson. But I think
but here we go.
That's how, it's sort of the trade-off, right? And how do you evaluate that? But anyway, so that was a meeting that I had. Did anyone else have any other, I don't know if the waste group or so forth, if anything else has transpired with some of your communications with folks? Tim, yeah, you have some.
Well, today I was on I don't know what you call it. It was a big Zoom meeting. There were a lot of people on it, but it was sponsored by the American Farmland Trust, and it was about actual data that shows the mitigation factors in land preservation, or land that has been preserved for agricultural use, and how much value it provides to a community. And I'll forward that. It's pretty good data, pretty good, pretty well researched, and the juxtaposition is to neighborhoods that have houses and roads and lawns that need cutting all the time, and people going back and forth, and all those things. So open land has real value to a community outside of being pretty and possibly providing food and that sort of thing. The savings in carbon or the gains in carbon sequestration are there. So I'll share some of that as I get the data.
That's great. Yeah, I think from between, tree canopies, we have, Scio has a meeting with Anna Cohn. We've been sort of tasked with, we have about $200,000 or so in the tree fund. And this is money that when developers have to replace the trees that they've taken down, oftentimes they cannot fit that many trees on the site because it isn't a 1-for-1. It's there's, depending on the size of the tree and the value of the tree, they have to replace them with more than one tree. And there hasn't been any policy around, how do you take these funds and plant trees? So Scio hasn't been planting trees, and because there's no policy around it. So we're trying to, develop a policy. And obviously it's about, looking at the canopy and where we don't have vegetation and enhancing the canopy and those types of things. So if anybody, I know, we're hoping Jackie will be back, because that's really her, trees are her thing. And we're hoping that she'll be back to help on that. So if anybody else knows folks that have kind of a forestry background and or a policy background in that realm, I think it's a week from this Friday that we'll be meeting in the afternoon. And because I think, with it, and it can be used for both, because what happens oftentimes is when you plant trees, if there isn't like a 3-year maintenance, those trees die. And I think there were some statistics about some of the Ann Arbor, plantings that they were doing, that the number of casualties were really, really high. And so don't have some sort of maintenance program or commitment on those, you're throwing your money away, right? So anyway, all right. Any other communications?
Just a quick update from Materials and Waste. We do have another meeting set up with Recycle Ann Arbor. That's with Jeff and I, and it is this coming Monday. And this time they actually have something in writing that we can start taking some action on.
Wow.
So progress is finally being made.
What is that they have in writing?
Jeff and I had sketched out some things that would basically enhance what Scio is now. For example, doing styrofoam, which GFL does not take. Setting up something kind of similar to what we used to have when we had the Saturday recycle events at the Township Hall, because those were still pretty popular. And we took a lot of styrofoam, a lot of plastic bags. So it's really kind of cover some of those items that are not otherwise covered. Except this time, it looks like we'd actually be doing it at Calvert's, which actually have some advantages to it, like transporting the roll-off units back and forth for one. So that's part of it. Hopefully there's going to be some things in there where residents are going to get this voucher thing where they get a certain amount. It'd be like a couple of trips over to, in this case, it'd probably be the drop-off station to take appliance type items, televisions, that kind of thing. So it's basically an enhancement of what we already have. And then another thing we're going to work on separately is Scio Farms, because they're not really under township control on this kind of thing. The idea there is I'm going to get Recycle Ann Arbor, and I've already initially done this, so I just got to follow up on it. And the property manager here to have some discussions about what we can do here in Scio Farms individually. And if that does materialize, and I did actually hear some initial kind of off the cuff numbers that I thought were pretty palatable, but that would be to have some roll off units here at a central location in the park. And they would probably twice a month come and replace those. We'd have to gauge how they get used right off, but hopefully that would be a second, but separate component to this. So that's really what the meetings are all about. Once we get something that we think is pretty close to what Jeff and I were looking at, and that they did initially agree to close enough and within a price that we were comfortable with, then we would have our Scio reps from Washtenaw Recycling, I can't say it, Management Authority, WARMA, also review this along with Will taking a look at it, Will Hathaway, and then they may have comments, things they want to do, but hopefully this all materializes into a document that can actually be taken to the Board of Trustees.
Great.
That'd be neat. Anything more on the Project Grow at all? Any communications there?
No, I have not heard from Joet. Although, yeah, it's about time I tagged him again. I really wasn't expecting much over the winter, but it would be a good time to try and get back in touch with them again. I don't know if we have anything definite to offer them, but it would be nice to know where they stand in terms of getting permission to use the property and what they intend to use it for. So yeah, let me go ahead and follow up with him.
Yeah, great. Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh, in terms of like tree mortality, this is a wonderful book, But I imagine that a number of folks at Seas Forestry in that area are already employing a lot of these techniques in terms of, planting seedlings and trying to reduce mortality. Mm-hmm. So this is a scientist that is actually, I think she worked for the Canadian Forestry Service, but this book and her work has made quite a stir in terms of the role of fungi and tree seedlings and companion planting. So it's definitely worth a read. It's actually quite fascinating if you're into that. Yes.
Which reminds me, Elizabeth, is this the first meeting you've attended?
Yes.
Yeah. What? Please introduce yourself.
Because, okay. All right.
I'm sorry. Bad leadership here. Sorry. Go ahead.
Not at all, Jan. You're conducting your meeting. So I worked for U of M for 35 years, and a little over half of that time is on the natural resources side, and mostly worked with both students and faculty researchers supporting science and primarily sustainability, which involved climate, air, water quality. So that's about it.
Great. So Elizabeth, I do have to get a short little bio from you, and then I think Norm Roller is another person who will be joining the task force too. So we'll get official appointments for you guys. But thank you.
Right. And Elizabeth is a fellow Unitarian Universalist.
Yes.
Will you put the name of that book you just showed in the chat?
I sure will. Yeah, you would enjoy it, Janine. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
You're boarding your plane, Janine?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to also, I wanted to say around the tree canopy stuff, I feel like Anna, our new colleague at the Township, raised some important points about just more thinking broadly about natural habitat and, what is the combination of species, that we encourage planting around, so not just trees, but other forms. And I hadn't thought about fungi at a meta level, or like a more macro level, but I love it.
Yeah. She's pretty amazing. Some of it is like, I'm skimming it, but I'm trying to absorb as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bob, did you have something?
Kind of takes care of itself, doesn't it? The fungi. I mean, we can plow around and interrupt it. But
well, I think the thing that was fascinating to me was there are some that appear at different times of year, like you would expect a lot of different plants to do, right? And so, and which ones there's actually a lot that she presents that basically there's a whole communication network going on underground.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the plants help one another. Mm-hmm. And what's beneficial, basically shares nitrogen and helps the soil and helps the other plants by, association. And so it's incredible.
Yeah. I just meant that because it's underground, we don't see it, and we're not very aware of the place that it has and all of the.
And think about it. The trees had the internet before we did.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. And great analogy.
The underweb.
The underweb.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that just goes back to the whole no-till piece too of creating those networks instead of just storing them. Bob, did you have something that you wanted to add?
I was just going to say, in regards to the seas aspect and the tree planting, maybe that would be our new seas project that we could propose, where they could come up with a plan for us for reforesting areas.
Oh, I think that would be a fascinating one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And they could also estimate carbon sequestration over time. It's easier to estimate, mature plants, but as they, are at different stages in their maturity, what could the township expect? But also, there's a team of students that I worked with that estimated for Washtenaw County, not just trees, but shrubs and other plantings, and how do they benefit? They benefit by reduced flooding, all sorts of things.
Yeah, and I'm really curious, it's sometimes hard to increase the from a policy standpoint and an ordinance standpoint. We have I would say a moderately aggressive tree policy, but it doesn't take into account that sequestration piece.
Yeah,
I'm wondering, if you could actually, would it stand up in court if you added sort of the sequestration and the future sequestration and all that, and would that support increasing the number of trees that someone would have to plant, or protecting more of the connected canopies and so forth? So I don't know what
good justification.
I don't want to be the court test case, but
yeah. Well, good justification for the expenditure of funds, right? What do we reap in the future?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And for a very, very long time.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So, all right. Any other correspondence? A lot of communications there. That's great.
That's what that was all about.
That was what that was all about. All right. Public comment. We do have Roger and owner. I'm not sure who owner is, but if you have anything that you'd like to bring up, or just introduce yourselves, we're a pretty informal group here.
You, Roger?
Yeah.
Hi, Roger.
Trying to get my oh, I see. I had an external camera hooked up. No, I don't. So I have an integrated camera, and the lighting's not so well. Yeah, you're talking about properties that could have solar panels. Why don't they have solar panels under the transmission lines?
Oh, underneath.
They also need equipment to be able to get in. That's a biggie.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I think they get in and clear the brush all the time. So
I meant around the solar panels if you put them in there.
Oh,
you
yeah.
need to be able to get
the payback should be there though, right? I mean,
that's an interesting thought.
So I looked up DTE. DTE has 2 parcels in Scio Township, but ITC.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
All that by WISD.
Well, no, the transmission lines.
Oh, they have.
And it's interesting that the parcels for the transmission lines. Maybe Charlie knows this. I didn't realize this, but they're not in the Scio database when you look up the parcels. They're on the county map, Washtenaw, but they're not on the Scio when you look up parcel number.
Yeah.
And that's a great point, Roger. And one of the other points that some folks brought up was also the farmland preservation. Could there be, a symbiotic relationship between farmland preservation and solar and wind, or solar or wind?
Especially the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although we don't have good wind here. That's one of the issues, but yeah.
Well, lately we have. It's been a little too good.
Yeah, a little too icy and a little too windy.
That's an issue.
Oh, interesting, Janine. Thank you.
Well,
yeah, because that brings up a really I've been trying to, because the idea of agrivoltaics, I guess that's a thing, right? And evidently and I didn't think about this before we did the millage, but the millage language, and it would probably need some legal interpretation, but from what I've heard, doesn't allow the integration of solar. And, we just, redid our millage, re-upped our millage. And so I don't know, you don't think ahead enough sometimes, but there still may be some possibilities, maybe with the buy protect sell or something like that, for
possibilities for farmland being.
Yeah, that using the millage, and it would mean, having a really specific discussion with Barry, who, understands the millage, and because it's not just our millage, but oftentimes it's pulling multiple farmland preservation funding together, right?
Almost usually is.
Yeah, and I think the restrictions on it are not solar friendly. So.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that, and I'm part of that Land Preservation Commission, so I can ask Barry about that. But
yeah, and I think that's, with our plan moving forward, it's something that we really need to understand and see how you can, work both. Because I think the U of M, the farm that they have too, they're going to be doing some work on the agrivoltaics too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll report back. I'll get with Barry and find out about that.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other, Roger, welcome, by the way. I don't know. There's someone else that is just labeled owner. I don't know if you want to, it's fine if you don't want to identify yourself, but we'd be glad to say hi.
I'm attempting to get myself in there. This is Norm Roller.
Hi, Norm. Welcome.
I don't know why I'm owner, but I've been here all along.
Yeah, I think if you go, I think if you hit the participants thing, you can then do other, where it goes ... and you can rename if you want to identify, if you want to do that. Yeah, do you want to just introduce yourself too? Because you're another new member.
Okay, I've been on the Parks Township Board for the last year. Had a lot of fun working with Anna on her natural features inventory and working with the trails systems in the parks. And I also, in my day job, do a lot of mapping of natural resources, natural resource features. And I've been hearing tree canopy maps and impervious surfaces and these kinds of things. And that's stuff I can do. And so I was going to contribute my efforts in understanding how to do that stuff to helping us get the most cost-effective version of that kind of information that we could get, and that it would be the most comprehensive and most up-to-date. So that's my contribution, is to kind of go in that techie area that I have some expertise in and contribute that to help speed things along and maybe make them as good as they can be.
Great, that's neat. How did, just a question, how do the satellite work that you do integrate with the GIS?
Well, most of the satellite data these days is digital. And so you can get a format that's cartographic from the sensor, and you can match that to the cartography of a digital file that you created from a map, and you can bring the two together in the GIS through an overlap of pixels. So you transform one to fit the other, and they lock together like Legos.
What platform are you using for your GIS?
I use a variety of different things, but there's QGIS, there's just the built-in capabilities that are in Verdas Imagine, and there's other free stuff. I tend to go the low cost route just because a lot of my clients prefer that kind of stuff. But I'm familiar with all the standard ones too, and have access to them if I need them.
Neat. So I just have to say, I'm continually floored by the people resources and the experience and just the volunteerism in Scio. It's just, it's unbelievable.
just for your consideration, the data that we're working with right now to do the tree canopy and impervious surfaces is ESA data from the Sentinel-2 multispectral scanners, and it's 10 meter pixels. So it's a pretty fine resolution for satellite data.
Yeah, it's almost scary. All right. Well, welcome, Norm. And like I said, both of you, Elizabeth and Norm, if you can just give me a quick little bio, and then we can get you officially appointed. But obviously, you're contributing already, so thank you very much. Okay. Any other comments here? All right. And hey, Roger, if you want to get involved, you're welcome. I'm pretty sure you have.
I'm kind of busy with other things and personal grandchildren. So,
all righty. So, okay. So what I've been trying to do is take everyone's writing and kind of morph it together into. We had decided that we're going to use sort of the Royal Oak format. Royal Oak, we just, I think it was 2 days ago, they agreed to release their format, which is an InDesign, and said we can use anything that we want. However, the person that's doing that is up at a cabin this week. And so we're hoping to get the format by Monday. So that will really help, if we can get the writing in, then a graphics designer can integrate photographs and, make it look good. So I think my sort of request is, if there are, I know Kathy has already volunteered to help do some editing. If there's anyone else that has some availability between now and like the end of the day Monday, that can help do some of the editing, that would be great. It's just taking all the documents that everyone else has, and I hear that the Natural Ecosystem Group, Marty was able to format what you had before into this. So that's just sort of a request. And then we'll put it in a graphic format, and at that point it's going to be sort of going back and editing things as we get feedback on it. And the feedback route, that's the other thing I wanted to kind of discuss tonight, was we have the working session scheduled for our time with the Planning Commission on March 13th is going to be from 8 to 10. And before that is actually going to be a very interesting presentation and discussion from Mandy Grewal. Mandy is the supervisor of Pittsfield Township, but she's got a PhD in urban planning. And she was sort of the motivating force into kind of the re-envisioning, and actually they've done it now, of Saline Ann Arbor Road, and really turning that from this kind of wasteland of cars and retail setback, big box retail, into more of a placemaking. And I didn't realize this, but she was involved a little bit with Nancy Hedberg and the original Jackson Road corridor, which the goal of that the original Jackson Road corridor plan was, to just eliminate some of the blight along Jackson Road. And so the Planning Commission has said, we really want to do something that is, more of a transportation corridor kind of thing, with emphasizing multifamily and higher density and so forth. And how can we integrate some placemaking with it? Because it is not pedestrian or bike or any other than car friendly at this point. And they've had some success there. So she's going to do a presentation and talk a little bit about lessons learned and maybe some ideas that we can spring off of. So that should be really interesting in the first hour. And so the second hour is, or second 2 hours is really us. And what I wanted to ask the group, I think, the plan is going to have a lot of, it has the vision stuff, it has definitions and all that, but the core of it is really that framework of action steps, and talking about, these are the things that we really think we need. What do you see as the priorities? How do you see partners? How do we implement this in Scio? And obviously resources and all of that. So that's what I would really like, folks, that if you're going to focus on anything, it's really those action steps. What are the costs? What do we think we can, what are the benefits from it? Who do we need to partner with to make this happen? And and I think we really need to stress, we're not using our website and some of the features around being able to communicate with folks. We should be able to have listservs. And, one of the things in doing the energy piece, the majority of our greenhouse gas emissions come from two sources: our vehicle miles traveled and our single family residential. That's the largest square footage we have in Scio. Now, I'm sure there's some industries, that have some pretty high greenhouse gas emissions, but it's us, folks. We're it. And so it's going to be the strategies are going to be kind of peer-to-peer and getting resources out there and really recruiting advocates in all of the neighborhoods. So anyway, so let's see. Then the other thing was, okay, so we have this, I'm starting to talk too much, I realize. But we're going to get some feedback. I'm encouraging, trustees to be there, land preservation. If you guys are, Tim, get the land preservation group there. I'm going to get Chris Chang to try and get the PPP, and Anna get the PPP there. Board of Trustees, absolutely. Because this is a really good opportunity to, talk about the heart of this and get some feedback. So we've done a pretty good job because we've had the SEAS team doing the outreach. So now we're going to have a plan, and we're going to need to figure out how we're going to get feedback on the plan as a whole, and trying to use the rest of March to do that. So want to open it up to, what do you think might be reasonable strategies that we could do to get some public feedback on the plan itself?
Hey, Jan, this is Janine. I'm just going to let you know I'm signing off and getting on my flight back home. Thank you all. I really appreciate the leadership amongst this group, and we'll see you the next
travels. Time. Thank
Safe
you.
Travels.
Take care.
Jan.
Yes.
Before we go into the public part of it, that actual meeting coming up on the 13th, neither Chris nor I can make that meeting.
Okay.
So would you like me to should we write up a statement or something that could go along with it, that we would say if we were there? Because you talked about, fairly focused.
Yeah,
okay.
That would be great. And just really focusing on that,
the
actions. Yeah, because that's where kind of the rubber meets the road, whatever. Yeah, that'd be great.
Kathy, what does your group do?
Transportation, the transportation mobility.
Good.
We do have our whole section already written and gone through, I think, as much as we need to. And by the way, as of today, I think that we have the waste and circular economy one done. And I was just starting on the building one. I have not seen the lists from either of the other two groups yet. So I haven't done anything.
Okay. Yeah, we have actually, yeah, the building one, I'm taking care of that one. So.
Okay, I don't need to worry about that at all.
Don't have to worry about that. Yeah,
Okay.
that one's golden. And,
okay.
Yeah, and I believe I got an email from Marty that she had put it in the Royal Oak format. So we just need to get that from Marty.
Okay.
You know, to edit. Yeah.
So it's just the emergency one that we need to.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll go back in because I think they have the framework set. I saw they got as far as they could with the framework. And so we may need to work with them a little bit on getting some of the other, you know, parts of that together. Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, question. You said the key word, the framework. As Jeff and I did a bunch of work on the ESCAP plan.
Yes.
But as we did so, we had noticed that we had worked on that earlier, that I think we called the framework plan before.
Mm-hmm.
But is this replacing that or part of it? Because it seems like some of the information like partners and that kind of thing should also be in what we're doing currently.
Yeah,
so there just didn't seem to be a place to plug that in.
Yeah,
it's in the Royal Oak format that the framework thing that we did before would go right before the metrics table.
Okay.
So it fits right in after all the text and before the metrics. That's how Royal Oak did it.
Yeah, and there is a column for, you know, to list partners in that framework. Yeah, so it
okay,
has.
So it helped if we move that over then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll work. Okay.
All right, thanks.
All right. So so the other thing would be what we need to do from each of the groups is to figure out who wants to kind of on March 13th do the basic presentation focusing on those action steps and what we feel the partnerships that we need, the support that we need, and sort of what's in the near term and what's in the, you know, is later on. So if we're looking, they're putting together March 7th, I think we're supposed to get the budget. We've put, you know, I've talked with people about, you know, funding certain things. And I will pass it when that budget comes out, I'll pass that along too, because it's going to be really important. You know, one to, you know, can we fund interns for this summer? We didn't get another C's team, but we can hire interns, right? And what funding for training and the additional modules or whatever we need for the website to be able to freaking communicate with people. You know, all of, you know, and any specific things. I know buildings, we already got a, you know, for replacing the 3 rooftop units, for instance, and making them heat pumps rather than gas forced air units. Things like that. So near term funding, and then looking at the long term and the priorities that we see that lie ahead. Then the other thing that we're going to push hard for is to make this group a permanent committee of the township and charge it with supporting the implementation of the plan. Now the plan does have to go through planning commission. It sounds like the trustees want to approve it as well, which is a good thing. They acquiesced on the master plan, which I wasn't too happy about. They decided they didn't need to approve that. But this is really
until later.
Until later, yeah. They said, "Oh, we should have looked at that." But you know, this has, I mean, as I look at it, is we want the township to change but this is another metric they need to use in their decision making. You know, so how do you integrate this with everything the township does? So thankfully we have, I mean, the advocates in the fire department, for me is astounding. I don't think there are too many, township fire departments that are so forward thinking. But definitely we have no one right now who can really lead this from a staff perspective. And so as they're thinking about, enhancing the staffing at the township, this, someone with some sort of sustainability background is going to be really important. So anyway, yeah. So you didn't know you signed on for a lifetime, right?
Just going to say, Jan, you're starting to frighten me.
Hey, I'm in it for the long term. Yeah. All right. So if folks could let me know who wants to do the speaking, and I really want to. Because we've allowed for 2 hours. If 5 groups go and you really hone in on the action steps, that's probably at least 45 minutes. So if we can use, the rest of the time and in your presentation, really ask for specific feedback about things. And, this is our opportunity to show our passion and show how it can really be integrated into the operations and the outreach of the township. And then the other thing I will bring up is doing an October sort of, and somebody can take this on who, thinks they can come up with some good ideas that will attract folks. We're going to pair, sort of our first sustainability community event with the open house for the fire station at Halloween, because that's already attracting folks and families. And so how do we layer that? It's a Sunday afternoon. What kind of things that we can do? We can, the county's next door. We can, bring some of their folks in. Maybe we can even get Michigan State Extension to do some stuff in their training room. So we have the fire station, we have the township hall, and possibly the county. So I think it could be a really kind of exciting time, and we can bring in some vendors. Yeah, Elizabeth.
Excellent idea. I think a lot of people have felt that the public health risks related to climate have helped really increase the understanding of why should we pay attention to this. So, emphasizing the number of high heat days, the dangers of fire, all sorts of things in terms of, you don't want to fearmonger, but you want to state, facts. This is what's happening. This is what we're seeing. These are the projections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what'll be fun is the ground mount solar will be installed, and I've gotten a commitment from the fire chief that we're going to do a native planting underneath it. So hopefully, we can. There'll be some show and tell, and the thing is with kids and adults, heck. How do we encourage some hands-on things, and can there be some actual projects that could happen? So, start thinking about some fun things to engage, and maybe we can even get the flyers, to be doing some stuff in the field. It doesn't all, the whole idea is to make it a fun kind of family, come on and see what happens kind of event, and sneak in all that sustainability stuff.
Yeah, we might be able to get some farmers, some local farms in the township to come and represent themselves and what they do and what food is available. And
yeah. I think there are things that each one of these our groups can really kind of think about how to, get people excited about what the possibilities are. Yeah. Okay. So I always love this. All right. Any other thoughts? This is, I think we're okay. Any other, Roger, did you have anything else you wanted to contribute?
Well, I heard the report earlier this week that with climate change, some of our tree species aren't going to be able to live here anymore. Mm-hmm. So when you're planning long term, you might want to, I don't know, change the.
Yeah, I think that's a real thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of spruce trees along Wagner Road here in the last few years, and that's one of the species that is already on the decline.
Roger, do you have a source for that? What trees?
Not off the top of my head, no. It was probably something on my news feed.
Okay, it's a good point.
Yeah, I would bet the Extension Service might have some stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And seas.
I think it was some of the hardwood too. Some of them. Mm-hmm. Some of the trees that make Michigan. But we had a lot of white pine damage in the neighborhood because when the ice hit the upper limbs, it took out the lower limbs.
I have about 40 white pine, and I have about I don't know 60 branches.
Yeah.
You got a lot of kindling then right now, right?
There's another interesting bit of information about white pine, and that is in the previous century they used to grow in this part of the state, but the average spring temperatures have gotten warmer, so the seedlings can't germinate anymore. Except about 1 in about 10 years, there'll be a crop of seedlings, and you can go out to Stinchfield Woods and see them come up. They eventually die off again, but it's climate change in a person's lifetime.
Yeah. Of course, jack pine has a whole different thing. It requires fire in order to regerminate.
Wow. Yeah, we have. Yeah, and that's that really gets back into the whole philosophy, not necessarily about sustainability, but the whole idea of regeneration, because we have done incredible damage to our ecosystems, and how do we really start looking at things in a regenerative sense as opposed to just stop the start doing better things, but but anyway. All right, okay,
I gotta run.
Yep, thank you very much. We just have to approve our minutes, and I forgot to send those out. Shoot. I guess we can wait, and I totally forgot to go in and dig those out, so forgive me for that. Any other announcements? We'll just do the minutes next time we meet, which will be April.
Are we on Wednesday now?
April, no, this was, Bob and I are taking the Citizen Planner class.
Well, it stays on Thursday.
Yeah, so it'll stay on Thursday, so it'll be the 6th.
Yeah, April 6th.
Yeah, and the other, I know what I forgot about, sort of the ideas for communicating. The county plan, they came up with and did a few listening sessions, and I'm just wondering if, we do have our HOA contacts, we have, some emails, we have the farmer contacts, we developed some contact lists that we could push out, and just thinking that, if we wanted to schedule a listening session sometime later in March, I think the public schools spring break is the last week in March, so we'd probably have to do the week of the 20th. And maybe just schedule a listening session, and folks could come, and we could do it, you know, both at town hall and on Zoom. And we'd probably just need either on Zoom or in Township Hall, you know, a member of each of the committees. I don't know if people would be willing to do that. I think one listening session is probably good, and then we can post the plan and, you know, get some email feedback from folks. Yeah, the thoughts on that? Would people be willing to do that? Or, I mean, we could also say April 6th, you know, instead of our meeting, we'll have a listening session. That could be another option. Anyone have any?
That might work.
Just do our next meeting and do a listening session. That, yeah.
People are used to hearing about it, the meeting date, so.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And we can get, and then it gives people enough time, several weeks to, you know, look at the plan and that type of thing. Okay, very good.
Mm-hmm.
We will have a listening session then on April 6th. Awesome. All right.
Jan, let me just put in, when you see the Scio Township newsletter come out, you'll see.
Oh, yes. Thank you for writing that.
You'll see a little blurb from our task force, and this one came from the food system and open land, and you know, that group, and it's about local food system, and it just lists I came up with 4 possible CSA farms here in the township, and you know, there aren't a lot of small farms in the township. There are some, and there are a lot more farms than do CSAs. But this was focusing on, okay, folks, here's some CSAs to call if you're interested. And so there's 4 listed.
Yeah, and Blue Springs, they're great. They even have strawberries. So that's fun.
They do, yes.
Yeah. And folks too, I was really impressed that the library was doing a CSA fair I think it's March 5th. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
is that what it is? The 5th?
Yeah. They're having the CSA fair at the library. And if you go in there, they list all the farms. I didn't realize so many of them were doing meat. There are quite a few meat CSAs.
Grand Valley Slow Food used to do that. They used to have CSA Day, and the farms who wanted to present to possible share members would always be there and have all their information. So it's a good thing. I'm glad to see them doing it, and I think there's going to be a CSA Day at the Ann Arbor Farmers Market too. Sometime in April. They're just going to declare one of the Saturdays. This is, you know, if you're interested in all the farms that are going to be there are going to present themselves as a CSA possibility if they want to.
That's neat. Yeah. Okay. The other thing, I'm experimenting. Someone, my daughter-in-law, gave me a Lomi. I don't know if you guys have heard that about what that is, but it's an appliance basically that you put, you can do up to 10% bioplastics in it and all your food scraps and so forth. And overnight it turns it into compost. I mean, if you live in an apartment, you know, it's sort of interesting. So,
good to be true.
What's that?
Sounds too good to be true.
It works. Honestly, I haven't tried the bioplastics, but honest to goodness, it.
Do you have to send it in? Do you have to mail it?
No.
Or do you can use it yourself?
Yeah, no, it's basically this. I don't know. It's about 15 inches it isn't a cube, but about 15 inches cubed. And it takes, for us, it takes about 2 days of food scraps, coffee grounds, all of that stuff. And it has 3 different settings. There's a fast setting that, you know, it starts the decomposition, so you can, you know, put it in your, you know, your other compost pile or whatever to accelerate it. But this is, I mean, I was pretty amazed. It has a grinder in it, and then the heat.
Jan, what is this called?
It's called Lomi.
Yes, so I read about that, but my understanding was there's a monthly subscription fee for using it.
They try and sell you these charcoal filters, you know, so if you sit it on your kitchen counter, yeah, you probably, you know, there might be some odor associated with it, but we have it in we have a little utility room in the garage that stays warm enough, and we haven't, now we'll see what happens in the summer, but
yeah, but you're not paying a monthly fee for it? You bought it?
Nope, just bought it.
Where did you buy it from?
Well, actually, my daughter-in-law gifted it to us.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, but you can sign up for these filters, and they have a, you know, charcoal activation. They have a little something that you can put in it, you know, in the compost and so forth. But so far, it hasn't run, and I guess it knows when it's done, because, and maybe the bioplastics, it would take a little bit longer, but for it's been mostly, you know, food waste and coffee grounds, that kind of stuff. And it's taken, I think the longest was 10 hours. Yeah.
Okay. Just one thing I would advise you on, you probably know this already, but if you're going to put what you call bioplastics in there, make sure it really is plant-based plastics and not what they call biodegradable plastic, which just breaks down into microplastics.
Right, which are no good.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to educate people every now and then.
Yeah. Yep. Even that, the plant-based plastics are, you know, they're treated with a lot of chemicals to get them to be plastic, right? I mean, if it's soybean oil, Jeff, you might know about that more than me, but I would imagine, you know, I don't know that I'd want to grow food in that compost.
Right.
I wouldn't have a problem
if organic compost, right?
If it's BPI certified, it's supposed to break down into things like carbon dioxide and water, and the harmless organics. So regardless of how it's put together, if it's BPI certified, I wouldn't hesitate about putting it in the compost. The compost farms that I take my stuff to accept it, you know, as long as it's the BPI certified, or if it's just plain, you know, just plain paper or plain soiled cardboard, that kind of thing. Now, there was a big thing about what was it? PFAS. And World Centric for a while, they had PFAS traces in their stuff. So they had to make an effort to get rid of it, but they should be okay now.
Interesting. Yeah. So we'll, you know, I do have actually some BPI. Before the pandemic, I had a whole bunch of BPI stuff for events and things. So maybe I'll try putting a few of those in and see what happens. But yeah, well, thank you everyone. And yeah, get back with me about who's going to be presenting. Really focus on those frameworks. And yeah, the whole bit is about action and what we need, you know, the other commissions and for sure the Board of Trustees to start thinking about as far as resources, both staff resources and money. So, okay.
Okay.
Thanks, team.
See you next time.
Okay. Take care. And Kathy will be in touch.
Yes. Oh, Jan?
Yeah.
Can you tell me the last names of these 2 new people on the committee so I can put them in for attendance?
Yes. It's Elizabeth Laporte and it's LA and then capital PORTE.
Okay.
And then Norm Roller, ROLLER.
Okay. Okay.
Perfect.
That's pretty much it. Okay, thank you.
Hey.
And I'm glad to do any writing that you.
Okay, great. So it sounds like you've done some stuff.
Yeah, I'll send you copies of what I have. The transportation's definitely totally done. I have to give one more quick work over. I worked with their team and we put one together, and it's, so those two formats match really well. And I did have a few things for building, like definitions and things, but I'll pass back to you what I have in case you can plug them in if you haven't gotten that far. But like I said, I didn't see the frameworks for the other two committees, so I didn't have any idea where to work with.
Yeah, I have to go find the one that I know Andy sent it to me for the emergency preparedness piece. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then yeah, I'll pass those on.
Okay. Sounds good. And then maybe what we can do, I'm thinking the frameworks, what I typically do, because they're Excel, you can actually clip those in a photograph. So if we keep them in the framework piece and edit them there, then all we have to do is clip and they can go get inserted.
Okay, so we don't, okay.
Yeah,
so I didn't put them in because I had a different format entirely, so yeah.
Right, yeah, so we can just take them right from the, if we edit them in the Excel document, then you can cut and paste, and I can stop our recording here.
That would help.